Okay, this is going to be where the rubber meets the road regarding sociolinguistics. There's supplemental readings on basic concepts. It's why language varies. Clearly, and I've listed them along in a chart on the left column, clearly where you live. I'm from Wisconsin. We say things like bubbler. I know people in Pennsylvania who will say, I seen him, instead of I saw him. It's to identify social ties with each other. Like in my family, if somebody starts a phrase with so, I went to do something, so somebody almost always in my family would interrupt by saying, so buttons on ice cream, because we hate that people say so much. Buttons on ice cream doesn't mean anything. You can't sew buttons on ice cream, right? Ethnicity, clearly, Black vernacular English varies greatly from standard American English. Gender, I have a whole list of things that women do that men don't do in English. And age, just the other day, I have Davenport on your example, but just the other day, my grandma, her voice went off in my head when I was posting to your discussion board saying how I hated something, because my grandma would say, oh no, hate is a strong word. You never hate anybody or anything. You don't hate. Hate is too strong of a word. You don't mean hate. Don't use the word hate. So every time I use the word hate, I go, ding, my grandma's voice says, stop using the word hate. We use it willy-nilly anymore, right? It's without thinking twice about it. And obviously our level of education is going to impact the way we use language. The more education you have, the more you're going to comply with the patterns of the standard vernacular. But for deaf people, there's even more reasons to vary. So in my opinion, I don't know if there's any actual research on this or not, but in my opinion, because there's more reason to vary for deaf people, the variation is probably even greater. I mean, remember me and the southern, older African-American guy and how we vary so greatly that I couldn't even communicate with them? Well, in my opinion, deaf people vary even more. There's so much going on. Whether their parents could sign or not. What kind of school they went to. Was it a deaf school? Was it a mainstream school? How deaf are they? How well can they hear? All of those things are going to impact the way they are going to impact each individual's idiolect. So in my opinion, no research to back it up, but in my opinion, because ASL has more reasons to vary than English does, it probably actually does vary more than English does. So that whole question about it being universal is completely blown out of the water. Not only is it not universal, but it is probably even more varied. It has a lot more dialectical differences, a lot more idiolect individual differences than spoken languages do, because there's so many more reasons for them to vary. Does that make sense? Plus, variation occurs on every level, again, phonological, morphological, discourse. So what I am asking you to do, I have given you some examples in each of the languages on how those things vary, and I'm asking you to come up with your own. And you can definitely work together, and you can definitely talk to your teacher about this, and definitely see that dictionary that the Schroyers wrote on Signs Across America. Now the hard part is going to be, here's the thing, is you have all these reasons why, geographic, social, ethnicity, all those reasons why language vary, with the structural levels of language, right, which are 5 of them. And you can actually have variation examples in each of those categories. So, for instance, my example about bubbler being the thing that you drink out of water in Wisconsin, that is a lexical difference. It's a whole word. It's a lexical difference based on geography. Whereas a gender difference might be something like the fact that at the discourse level, women typically insert apology more than men do. Those kinds of things. So you can come up with examples in English. It would be way too hard to try to do this in ASL. And what I would like you to do is, again, work with your classmates to fill in all the blanks on this chart and find other examples. For instance, what would be a lexical item that would be used by one social class and not another, or what would be a way, a phonological difference between one age and another, those kinds of things. So that's the rubber meeting the road right there.